Добрый день, дамы и господа. Большое спасибо, что сегодня с нами. Я очень хотела бы представить моих спикеров. Сегодня это Алексей Korobkin, он директор по развитию России, СНГ и стран Балтии, Скандинавии, Intercontinental Hotels Group, а также Майк Collini, вице-президент по развитию в Турции, России и Восточной Европе Hilton Worldwide. Итак, у нас сегодня очень интересная тема – это Казахстан. Дело в том, что Казахстан является партнером. И, безусловно, нам очень интересно поговорить о нашем ближайшем соседе. Итак, господа, ваши бренды представлены в Казахстане не настолько широко. Hilton в Астане, а Интерконтиненталь в Алмате и Актау. Вообще, что значит Казахстан для вас, в общем и в целом?
I'm gonna speak in English for everybody in the audience. Господа, я буду говорить по-английски, чтобы моему коллеге было немножко проще со мной общаться. Arina, thank you very much for the question. As you said, yeah, Kazakhstan is obviously, one of our big neighboring countries and a very important market for IHG back in 2011 when we have dedicated Russia and CIS to be a strategic region. Obviously, Kazakhstan plays a big part of that. And yes, we have had historically 2 hotels for a long time in Almaty. We just opened a hotel in Aktau. So for us, Kazakhstan, and I think we'll get into a little bit more details later on, is really a big market. In the last couple of years, when a lot of us have seen that the Russia market has maybe slightly slowed down before picking up again, we can say that the Kazakhstan market has been quite reliable in terms of investments, in terms of local investors. And so it's definitely one of our big priority countries.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Collini. I'm head of our development activity for Turkey, Russia, and Eastern Europe. Within that, Turkey and Russia are our strategic markets where we have development offices dedicated to developers in the market and where we have a focus on growing all of our brands. Outside of those 2 markets, I would place probably Kazakhstan as a sort of strong extension of...
Could you please switch the microphone, please? Thank you.
Is that better? I would put Kazakhstan as a strong extension of Russia, and together with Georgia are probably the more significant markets in my area. So very relevant that the organisers have chosen these 2 markets for this panel. Our presence today, we opened Hilton Garden in Astana last year, in March last year. Beautiful 248 property in the city centre, in the new city centre of Astana. And really Kazakhstan is a focus for all of our brands, which I'd like to talk about later.
Thank you. 2017 год будет очень значим для Казахстана, потому что это и Экспо в Астане, и зимняя универсиада в Алмате. Очень важное мероприятие для страны. Вы как-то готовитесь к ним? Можете рассказать об этом, о том, что значит для вас непосредственно эти мероприятия?
I mean, I think we've had, I'm just going to make a little segue, we've had a few big events in our larger region of Russian CIS, and from a hotel's point of view, we've spoken about this many times, we look at a long-term picture. Yeah? So we have 15, 20 year management or franchise contracts. So for us, an event is important. It's probably more important on a macro scale that it promotes the city as a destination. When it comes to hotel specific, I mean, it's a month, 2 months of, yes, high occupancies, high ADRs, but also high, I would say, wear and tear for the hotels. So I think that, yes, these events are very important in getting the international and the regional attention to the city, with helping the investments. So we definitely see in Astana, the boom which is connected to the Expo 2017. But in terms of hotels, for us, it's a bonus along the way of a long road when we look at any hotel project. So, and yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We shouldn't get too carried away with these events. They're important, but as Alexey says, we take a long-term view. It was interesting that the panel this morning on mega events, and I think Kazakhstan certainly fits into the sort of South Africa and Brazil relevance rather than the more mature sort of Germany and France. You have to be very careful not to get carried away and too much supply coming in. But the events are important. They're good at promoting the city in terms of attracting additional investment and improving infrastructure, which is for the long-term benefit of the country. So it's very positive these are happening, but it's important not to get carried away, I think.
I think just to add to that, we were looking forward, and it was a bit of a shame that Almaty didn't get the 2022 Olympics. I think that, a lot of our partners in Kazakhstan were really hoping that would happen. And so I think, that would have been another great step for Kazakhstan. Now, they didn't get it, but, they were still up there, so that still put Almaty, additionally on the map in terms of, the big events that could be handled.
Да, но мы очень сожалеем о том, что они проиграли Пекину. Мы говорим о двух столицах все равно. Алматы, Астана. Есть ли вообще жизнь за пределами двух столиц? То есть вы, Алексей, говорите о том, что у вас есть в Актау отель не так давно, правильно? Почему именно этот регион?
Знаете, на самом деле, I always get mixed up between the two languages. Anyway, but obviously, Almaty and Astana are the main two markets, are the important markets. But yes, there is life outside those two cities, and Aktau is a great example. Aktau and Atyrau are both the oil, you can say, capitals of Kazakhstan, and they've had an international hotel there for a while. So we have come in last year and looked at the market and realized that yes, there's great potential for a solid international mid-market brand, which is what is really in demand for corporate travelers. Now, most of the travel in these regional cities, that's places like Aktau, Atyrau, Aktyubinsk, Karaganda. So there's plenty of other, let's call them B cities, which still generate a lot of local demand and a lot of local travel. And Kazakhstan, very similar to Russia, is the population is becoming knowledgeable. They've traveled the world. They've seen different quality hotels. So when they travel within the country, they also would like to get quality accommodation. So definitely, we consider that, there is a tier of B cities where we would definitely look at the mid-market segment. So for us would be the Holiday Inn and the Holiday Inn Express brands, where we see that certain cities could fit, maybe a couple of international hotels, but most of the cities definitely have demand for at least one international hotel, which could really do well and become the focus point of the city, which is something we have seen in Russia, I think, in a lot of regional cities where we've seen a first international hotel that came in, and if it's in a good location, that really automatically becomes the commercial and the social center of the city. So I think the same story could play, successfully in Kazakhstan.
Майк, а у вас есть какие-то планы по продвижению помимо столицы? Своих брендов, я имею в виду. Таких как города, как Актау, например, или что-то другое?
Yeah, I think it's clearly two cities that dominate Kazakhstan. Both have a good selection of hotels at the moment and quite a bit of supply coming in. So I think it's important to see how those markets absorb that supply in the next couple of years. Whilst we have a focus for all of our brands, I think the real market opportunity remains in the mid-market. And outside of that, clearly Aktau, Atyrau, Shymkent, Aktobe, Karaganda, for example, are all key emerging cities where there is limited good quality hotel accommodation. And I genuinely believe that the sweet spot is in the mid-market segment. I think over time, focused service will grow in Kazakhstan, but I think in the next few years, mid-market is really the market opportunity. There's luxury coming into Astana, there's more luxury coming into Almaty. I think they will be long-term returns on investment. Not to say they won't work, but I think it will take longer to return on investment. So really, the strong focus, I think, is mid-market, and that's where we're looking to grow our Hilton Garden Inn brand.
Есть ли какой-то потенциал у Актау по увеличению туристического потока вне вот этих вот нефтегазовых туристов? Если не секрет, у вас есть какая-то информация конкретно там по тому, какой процент туристов вне профессиональных бизнес-поездок посещает, например, такой город, как Актау?
I think firstly, when it comes to statistics in our region, we should all admit that statistics could be better. So I think it's also difficult to sometimes distinguish between a corporate and a leisure traveler, especially now that Kazakhstan has introduced a visa-free regime. Yeah, so on the border, people are coming in, you have the list of the 20 countries. So I think that very often it's a mix of both. So it's something that was talked about in the previous panel. So something like Актау, for example, since we touched on that, yes, it's traditionally a corporate market, but actually we're opening a second small holiday Inn in Актау, which will be 69 rooms. It's a rebranding of an existing hotel, and that is located right on the seaside. So the focus of that hotel, even though yes, it's going to attract the usual profile of a corporate traveler, but it's going to be much more leisure focused. It has large territory with many additional facilities. And actually, if you have been to Актау, if you have walked, along the Caspian Sea, it's really beautiful. Unlike Baku, where when you walk along the embankment, it's not really, that main part of Baku, the center, is not really, something where you imagine swimming. Актау, on the other hand, is something completely different. So yes, these cities, especially the ones that are on the Caspian Sea, they have a potential for tourism, they have potential for internal tourism, for tourism from neighboring countries, but I think there needs to be more focus on promoting them as additional leisure destinations. At the moment, again, the two main, Актау and the Tarawa cities along the Caspian Sea, we only think of them as corporate oil cities, but in reality, yes, you could do a lot more there.
Вы рассматривали вообще какие-то другие регионы для продвижения своих брендов, возможно, помимо oil and gas специфики, скажем так? Вообще, что вы можете сказать о региональных брендах Казахстана?
We have Shymkent. Shymkent is actually the third largest city in Kazakhstan. So we have a holiday inn coming up in Shymkent as well. So we are currently actively working on some of the cities that we had already mentioned, on top of Актау, Tarau, Karaganda, Shymkent, Aktyubinsk. All of these places have investors which are interested in bringing in a hotel. And as we said, for us, it's definitely the mid-market brand. It's either the Holiday Inn or the Holiday Inn Express. I think it was the same for Mike and Hilton, that it would be the mid-market brands. But ultimately, like with any hotel development, we have to look at the market to understand that there is potential, there is long-term demand, there is an investor who understands the hotel business, who understands that it is a long-term investment, and who is willing to get involved in that business.
Вы говорили про, все знают об отмене виз для 19 стран не так давно. Насколько это повлияло на бизнес в целом? То есть вы можете говорить уже сейчас о позитивной динамике, которая произошла в отрасли? Майк?
Well, I was very encouraged to hear that this has been put into place. We constantly lobby governments, and we've been doing it continuously in Russia for many years now to try and improve the visa process. We think that has a really direct benefit on particularly trying to drive and improve the leisure market. But it's just one aspect. I think there's a whole infrastructure, facilities, whole development that needs to take place to really improve the leisure market long term. But it's certainly a very, very positive step. And I think one that we will continue to lobby Russia to try and do. We undertook a report for Russia several years ago, and at the time 6 times more people were leaving Russia than were visiting. That's changed now, but we think it's something that has a very direct benefit to promoting the country, and is the first step. So well done to Kazakhstan for doing that. Obviously, there's a lot more to come, but it's very positive first step.
Yeah, just to add on that, I mean, actually, Mike brought up a very good point that, yes, the visa-free regime is the first step, which is very important, but I think when we look into the connectivity of the region, Air Astana really dominates air traffic in that region. And I think, the Kazakhstan government is pushing for them to really be the #1 carrier, and they're doing a great job. They've brought in a lot of expert help to really improve the company. But I think what you have to understand is that since a lot of the travel is corporate, and I'm sure Mike is going to agree, Hilton, same as IHG, has corporate travel policies. We have, risk management, and I don't know how it's for Hilton, but for us, we can, out of the Kazakhstan Airlines, we could only use Air Astana. So very often with the big international companies, when you travel for business and you have to adhere to your corporate travel policy, it sometimes makes things a little bit difficult if you don't have a choice of many airlines. Now, okay, as a tourist, you might go and say, okay, well, here is a low coaster. Yeah. Hopefully you won't find their, safety rating anywhere online and you'll decide to take it. But in general, this is something that needs to be improved. If you see now, there are 2 flights per day to Astana, to Almaty, which is great. I want to say about a year ago, it was only the night flight. So you could only leave Moscow at 10, 11 o'clock at night. You get into Astana and Almaty at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Not really the best flight, as Darren had mentioned on the previous panel, for tourism, and also not really the best flight for business, because if you've been flying for 4.5, 5 hours now, if your company pays you business class, great, but if they don't and you fly in economy and you arrive at 5 o'clock in the morning, you might get a couple of hours of sleep in the hotel, but really you're coming in at the beginning of a working day, and that's not really how you want to start your day. So I think air connectivity and improving air connectivity is really going to be it should be a big focus for that region in order to really improve business and tourism flow.
Yeah, as an example, in Turkey, we've seen how Turkish Airlines, particularly domestically, have really created that network, and it really not only drives further domestic business, but obviously encourages more international visitation. And Turkey is a very good example. Now with the World Cup coming in Russia, I think that's an area that needs to be improved, the domestic network, and over time in Kazakhstan as well.
Скажите, в заключение, если подводить итоги, что для вас в этом году, уже выходящем, наверное, являлось самым большим достижением? Что, наверное, было самым большим вызовом, и вообще какие ожидания для следующего года?
I think I'm going to take it a little bit further and take it back to last year, because for us, especially in IHG, Kazakhstan performed very well last year. We had signed 3 hotels in Kazakhstan alone, 2 of which are going to open this year. What had happened is that Kazakhstan has managed to hold off, I think, the currency devaluation for as long as they could. And now about, 2-3 months ago, when they had the sudden overnight 40% drop in local currency, that was expected, but I think when you have such a big drop overnight, it really slows down a lot of the investors. So I think even though the year has started extremely positive and we see our projects developing and they're opening, and we're looking into adding projects to our portfolio this and next year, I think this whole economical situation has put a bit of an additional thought in some of the investors' minds. Let me take a pause, let me look at the project again. So I think that has just put a little kink in all of the development plans in Kazakhstan. Otherwise, aside from that, I would say outside of Russia, Kazakhstan continues to be our biggest development market in terms of number of deals and potential.
Yeah, in terms of biggest challenge, I think last year we finally opened a hotel. That has to be probably our biggest achievement. I've been going to Kazakhstan for about 9 years, and it's certainly been, some ups and downs. We had a hotel in 2007 which fell victim to the credit crunch, so it was great to finally open a beautiful garden in last year. And going forward, the focus remains to build on that and to grow. I think it will be predominantly the mid-market opportunities that come. but I'm just looking to hopefully see more stability in Kazakhstan. And the devaluation hasn't helped. Clearly, if oil prices begin to stabilise and the country can begin to diversify a bit more, then long term the market opportunity remains very good. But just looking really for some more stability and looking to grow mid-market. I think that's the key priorities.
Ну а насчет все-таки следующего года, то есть что-то такое, что ожидаете и как-то конкретно?
I mean, for us next year, obviously, we continue to open the hotels that have been signed. We are looking to add to our portfolio in Astana. I think that's definitely going to be one of the key markets going forward. And I think, like Mike said, for us, we're really at the moment focusing on the mid-market segment. Astana is already getting quite heavily supplied in the upscale and luxury segment with all of the projects that has been announced for Expo 2017. Now, will all of them happen? Time will tell. As we know, in our region, between announcement and opening is a long road. So I think that so for us next year, it's really to build on the success of the last couple of years that we've had in the country and to expand within the main two markets and then into the B cities with our Collini family brands.
What about next year?
Yeah, sorry, just to repeat, I think going forward next year, the strategic focus is to grow our mid-market brands, I think.
The both. So
there will be opportunities, there are some very high-profile, ambitious casino zone, new cities and whatever coming our way, but I think that's very long-term. But there may be opportunities, but I think the focus is mid-market.
Okay, thank you. So, do you have any questions for my speakers?
I think everybody's looking forward to the coffee break.
Yeah,
which is about to
I
begin.
think so. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.